in the pursuit of life, I learned earlier on that I'd need to look out for myself. I remember very little about the severance from my parents at the age of 4 when I left for boarding school. And all that I needed to learn was from nuns, teachers, caregivers, seniors and peers. But the love. The weekly letters from my parents merely kept my bearings in place. My sister joined me when she was 7 and I was 9. It seemed like we were all each other had. But over the years, with differences in faith and the families we moved into through marriage and that I moved out of in time, the distance that separated us was no more territorial, and I wondered about the love. This was my family. Was there rejection? Not really. I loved them, and I know they love me in their own way. We don't choose family. Over time, we find parts of us that resonate with family, and we either take pride in it or reconcile with it. After a point, I stopped gauging and analyzing, as a heart by then moved outside of family on the love conundrum to people I chose, people I let in. One boyfriend, one husband, and then several male friends, one after the other, on the same quest. This time around, it needed to be more than love. It had to be packaged with honor, respect, transparency, and a sense of exclusive belonging. I've come to realize that those are some of the biggest asks in life. Was there rejection? Oh yes, time and again. And if I wasn't rejected, I would preempt the same when I'd finally step out of denial and admit that I would never get to go even once to the deep end, that I would never get taken there. For the waters I'd tread were always shallow as ever. I'd look around and see most others at sea, and there I'd be, not making it past the waves on the shore. But there was more family, 2 lovely children. With all the travails in marriage, a horrendous and traumatic divorce, as if the marriage wasn't bad enough, and my shortcomings thereafter, trying to find my way in a fast-changing life, and the net effect of efforts to compensate and make good, I'd come back feeling like I failed, struggling with the disillusionment around the enigma of love. Speaking about the closest of bonds, the order of life brings you some that will both implode and explode your heart at the same time. Grandchildren. Sooner or later you realize they are truly grand and only as much yours to let the best version of love soar and flourish. Friends and extended family are incredible, but for a closest friend, I never really found the essence of the equation any close to all else mentioned. The love? Well, in parallel, all along, from a point of realization, I leaned on the love of God and embraced self in an absolute abandon of love. That said, from my experience, neither filled those spaces that one's being or exposure were intended for with respect to all those relationships mentioned earlier. Diverting your attention to work, hobbies, socializing, distractions and coping mechanisms balances those scales a bit, but no, the gaping holes remain. I wrote songs to get by, literally thousands of them. They were at best temporary fixes, getting stuff out of the system without a cure. When love is unrequited, the pain is almost physical. It is incapacitating, to say the least. A nagging ache that just will not leave. Prayers bring some relief, but the mind remains in an agonizing loop. At some point, I needed to reach out at therapy to unknot the pain. St. Francis of Assisi penned a prayer where he asks not to seek to be loved, but to love with all the soul. This prayer embodied for me the closest resolution to a lifelong struggle with love. An expression of love that is intentional, where love is deliberate. Love is a decision. I have another definition of love, that love is taking ownership and responsibility, and that rarely comes without sacrifice. It has very little to do with any love received in return. It overlooks faults and trespasses. It has no count. It forgives. It is unconditional. Don't get me wrong. Some doors will have to stay closed going forward, some for a time, but you pull the curtain after conveying your peace. Indeed, some distances will need to be maintained. Some ties will need to be broken, mended in the best way possible, and left at that. The worst of foes could become allies. A few that I never imagined would cross over did. You allow people to know their place, or their new place, if they'd still like to be around. It's what I did. Unrequited love is one thing, but outright rejection is a pill really hard to swallow. In my 50-odd years, I've had 4 heightened experiences of abandonment or being cast away. Interestingly, once that happens, it's not like you can pause or stop in your tracks, for life goes on. While the first 3 are now more of a haze, the last one is still quite a fresh recall. The initial crying and breathlessness moving on to a numbness and quiet, by which time the shock had quite settled, or perhaps I settled into the shock. Oh, I am not exonerating myself of reactional obtuse behavior. I think when we're pushed to the edge, we either fall like the doomed or fly like the angels. I have fallen so many times. And I double up being hard on myself when I think, say, or do anything out of line, even as a reaction, making the ordeal a lot worse. Reaching out to a dear peer group, venting such an experience as I did, only added to the nightmare. There are no gurus to show you what to do when you're in it. You have to pick the pieces or save what's left of your broken heart and move on. Rejection is a challenge hard to overcome. Failure not as bad. It really is a stepping stone. You somehow have to bury the hatchet on rejection to the point where it doesn't matter anymore, even feels like it never happened at all. Why such peace is paramount is because it adds to or takes away from your chi, your energy, and the flow of life, your life. So this here was not a monologue about the pursuit of love after all. It is the pursuit of life itself. It's incredible how love and life are as intertwined. Love in all its facets. Acceptance, affirmation, admiration, and adulation. Given how volatile the experience of love could be, at least for those who feel so, and thus its effect on life, it is on us to keep the flame burning brightly. It is on us to build that strong core, the core of us. You are ultimately on your own. The one who has the final say about you is yourself. That's the person you face all the time and are accountable to. I wouldn't say that it's you against the world. It is you living with yourself, and from that core, learning to live with others, close, known, and strange. I'm known for a couple of outstanding feats: 4 world records in singing and songwriting, and the legacy in music. Speaking for myself, I think one needs to be solid in the core, even to fuel on towards the goal. The larger goal of life and smaller goals. Goals set by self, standards and benchmarks set by self. Naysayers in adverse circumstances may be able to peel off our layers, even defenses. They will not be able to do much to a clear and compelling core. My focus, therefore, by and large, is on the core. It's a lot of work, loving. It's a lot of effort, loving when there are bad days. It is literally swimming against the tide, loving through a pushback. An ongoing exercise that so easily can deplete you of all your energy. It was important for me to take stock and reorder people. I've also learned that you have to build fences where necessary. The world has evolved so much that entryways are pretty much all over the place. People coming in and taking away your time, your focus, your stamina, and in some cases so close to taking away your life. It's just so draining. Why let them? Why give them anything, much less a piece of you? That's very clear. I'm still learning about mitigating loss in the event of a breakdown, but there is this tacit preparation beneath the surface all the time. And it has helped recover from setbacks, not only in relationships, but also associations at work, when going places, even something as simple as walking down the road. Whether it is neglect, a rude word, a violation, an assault, or obvious abuse. Furthermore, if not for the outright haters, there will be those that will smile at you and stab you in the back. Of course, it's difficult to resist the urge to get even. I've always felt better not making much of or confronting on what is not revealed to me by the individual concerned. I let it take care of itself. Ignore. Be the better person as I'm enabled to be. Once I navigated my way through relationships and the spillover from people coming into, staying in, or leaving my life, more importantly, once I figured the love mystery, everything else was a flow. Even the toughest of challenges, setting world records and climbing mountains, a beautiful flow. Life is beautiful. Let it flow. Create the flow. Then go.